From here, my partner's going to be on his knees. From here, you can either have like 2 butterfly hooks like this or one up, one down. Usually, like when I start playing, this is where I'm going to be because I have a little bit more base. It's a little bit easier to sit up. And then once we start to get the grips for this particular version, we're going to make 2 butterfly hooks. Okay? So we're here. I'm going to control my partner's wrist. I'm going to reach not at my partner's elbow, but all the way up to my partner's shoulder. From here, I'm going to pull him forward, push his hand between his legs, and then connect our shoulders together. Once we make this connection, it's really hard for your partner to pull that arm back away without giving you a real big kind of exaggeration here. But my goal with this position is to not have to use, or to not have any separation between our bodies. Because if Peyton rips his arm back here, he's going to be able to do that really easily. If we're able to connect our shoulders, it's going to be much, much more difficult. Then from here, our arm is going to go over our partner's back and grab our partner's lap. Once we have that, we have a lot of control over our partner. From here, if I haven't already, I'm going to make 2 butterfly hooks. I'm going to think about pulling my partner forward as I dig my heels into the mat and scoop my hips underneath my partner. From here, we have our partner's weight loaded up on our hooks. I'm just going to lift with this hook, take my partner over. I'm going to feed him my leg so he gets a hold of it, and I'm going to roll my shoulder in front of my partner's chin and land with a nice strong cross face. Once I have that cross face, I'm just going to hang out here. I don't really need to turn my base all the way over because from this position, I've already cleared my knee line and I'm ready to start to pass towards mount. Okay? So we go. 1, 2, connect, lap. We're going to think about pulling our partner forward as we scoot underneath our partner. The idea here, guys, my partner's center of gravity is right about here, right above his belly button. I need, in order for any type of butterfly sweep, I need to be able to get underneath of that. So what I need to do is both pull my partner forward, and if I can dive underneath them at the same time, it's going to make it a lot more effective. If we're here and I don't really do either of those things, then lifting Peyton up is going to be really tough. But if we think about pulling him forward as we're scooting, it's going to be much easier, and then immediately we're in on our cross face and ready to pass from there. 3, 2, 1. I start to control Peyton's arm and go for an arm drag. Peyton has an arm drag on me. So from here, if I can drag him, but he can also drag me. Okay, and that's going to be really important when we sweep with these grips, because what can happen here is when we go, if I think we get here and I think, okay, I want to get on top of this guy as quickly as I can, I am making his arm drag stronger. So when I just turn my hips over, my head stays on this side of his head. From here, as soon as I turn my hips over, Peyton can drag, and now he has a lot of back exposure. So what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, I know that when I give you, or when we do this position, what Peyton wants with a drag is to be as close to my back as possible. So we're staying down on our hip. So he has to get all the way around before he really gets any type of back exposure. And with this position, he doesn't really have a great way to hip out. Okay? Even if he starts to drag really, really hard here, I have a lot of room and a lot of time to wiggle around. And if he does that, I'm actually in a little bit better position to retake his back. So from here, our goal is cross face. The cross face will stop our partner from the drag. Now we can start to get that arm free and then look to pass, okay? But we're staying down on our hip, guys. If you don't do that, then especially with momentum, what happens is we go, we drag, we turn our hips over as quick as we can, and then Peyton's on my back, okay? 3, 2, 1. Now, sometimes what'll happen, if your partner really wants to like keep you bogged down in this position, they're gonna start to walk their legs up and capture your knee, okay? So my partner's half guard is locked over my thigh. Anytime that happens, okay, we need to address that because I'm not going to be able to really go very far, okay? So what I'm going to look to do here, and this would be my underhook arm, okay? If I already had an underhook, I don't have to worry about this step, or if I already was over that and they didn't climb their leg up high, I can just skip this and keep an underhook. So what I'm going to do is use my elbow to bump my partner's leg off. And then we have a couple options. I could go into a knee slide, but we're going to go into mount, okay? So I'm going to drive this knee all the way down to the mat. If we don't have an underhook already, we're going to make our underhook. From here, I'm going to bring my foot in, pry find my way to the mount, just like so. All right? So we go into the full sequence. So we start with our drag, 1, 2, connect, scoop, lift, chill. Okay, we're not turning our base over. I don't need to turn my base over from here. We're staying low, get our good cross face, bump down, touch the knee, right to the mount. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Careful, when I land here, I've pulled up my partner's arm, I have this grip. This is another reason why turning your base over can get you into some trouble, okay? If Peyton reaches underneath this leg, as I start to go and drive to the mount, he's in what we call the deep half guard. Now this is not the best position in the world to fight from, especially in no-gi without grips, but it's still another layer of the guard, and the strength of this position, especially from this situation, is that what we're normally doing from a half guard situation is trying to put our partner's spine out of alignment, where his hips are pointed one way and his chin is pointed the other. If he can start to reach underneath your leg here, he is able to turn, and so that his spine is in alignment. So when we go from here, if he starts to reach underneath that leg, now we end up in a spot, and if I'm not careful, he can roll me over and do all kinds of crazy things. So we need to make sure that when we sweep, we're keeping everything down, and if I feel him start to reach underneath my leg, I'm going to slink lower and lower and lower and really make that tough, and give him a little bit more cross face, because the more cross face he's eating, the harder it is for him to start to reach with this hand, and then work from there, okay? So, just something to keep in mind, we want to keep our hips low, okay? So, now, we did all this work, we landed in the mount. From here, we should have a cross face on, and if we probably should have an underhook arm as well, okay? So, from here, we're going to look to set up our arm triangle. I'm going to put my hand on the mat, start to straighten, walk my fingers, straighten, walk my fingers, and all the while this hand is climbing from my partner's armpit up to his tricep, helping keep this arm glued to the side of his head. Eventually we get it so far past that we're able to transition our head to the other side. From here I'm going to push on my partner's tricep with my hand and my head. We're going to think about making a thumbs up and moving our hand up, down, up, down. That's going to take away any space on the side of your partner's neck here. We're going to lock our hands palm to palm. I'm going to touch my forehead on the mat. Now, a really important detail here, guys, is my shoulder has to stay well below my partner's chin. Otherwise, you're going to be like sharpening your partner's teeth or like cranking their neck. So from here, at any point, if I feel like I've drifted up high, and it's really easy to do, I'm just going to think about bringing that shoulder right back and getting my head nice and low. Depending on your body type too, you might not even be able to get your head all the way down to the mat, but you want it low rather than high. From here, we're going to look to dismount. So I bring my foot to the other side, my knee goes to my partner's hip, we're going to flare our leg out wide. From here, there's two finishing details that we're going to look at. We're going to push our head into the side of our partner's head, and then with our left arm, we're going to bring our elbow down to our hip. Okay? So without anybody, it's here, bring it back. So, we go, you guys will start and mount on this one, cross face underhook. We start to jack that up, get it high, get it high, get it high. Pass our head off, push, take away any space, lock the hands. With your hand that's underneath your partner's head, palm down. When it was a cross face, it's going to be palm up to grab the meat of the lat or something like that. But then we switch when we lock up our choke. From here, boom, boom. Even from here, I might have drifted my shoulder a little bit too high. I just moved my body back. I want to aim to have my shoulder at the top of my partner's sternum. We're pushing our head into our partner's head, doing a row. It should be a very easy choke. Okay, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, boop, scoot, lift. Not turning our base over, but getting our shoulder in front of the chin. Push the knee down, drive the knee across. Use our space. Walk, 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 walk. Pass our head off. Up, down, up, down. Head stays low. Knee to the hip. Get our pitch. 3, 2, 1. Try to be as smooth as you can. Smash me, okay? So I have to be really careful when that happens because our partner has a much wider base, and one of the biggest problems that we run into with butterfly guard is that the integrity of our guard and the horsepower of our guard come from the same thing, and they can only be used for one thing, right? So whenever I go to kick, now the stability of my guard is going south, and I've used all the horsepower to like try to finish. So I need to make sure that I've turned my partner's shoulders there. So if they start to tripod up, we're here, he starts to get up high. What I think of is like, okay, first step. Right now, I'm pretty well underneath him, but the advantage that I have when he starts to tripod up is that it's easier for me to get under his center of gravity. If he stays on his knees, I'm stuck where I am. So with this, I'm going to think about pulling him further forward and really elevating. Now it's going to be much easier to take him down to the side. The other thing is, when we go, just like when we do our pendulum sweep, right? When we get to pendulum, when we initially get this arm across the body, we either have an opportunity to attack the back, or if our partner drives this shoulder to prevent the back exposure, that's when we can start to hit the pendulum. The same is true with this arm drag position. I just didn't tell you guys that. Some of you guys, I saw this group figured it out on their own. From here, when we go and we scoot ourselves underneath, there's nothing saying that I can't go the other way. So from here, if I go this way, oftentimes we'll have like back exposure right away. So you can kind of feel what your partner's doing. So if they're shifting their weight and kind of leaning this direction, then the back might be a little bit of an easier option, and you might get a little overextended if you force your way to the sweep. Versus, and the opposite is true as well. Okay? So great question. The other thing when they start to tripod up, that we'll get into a little bit probably next week, is that it offers us space underneath their hips. So from here, if I start to go, now I'm under Peyton's hips if I feel like I can't go one way or the other, and then we have all kinds of attacks from there. Cool. Anybody else? Awesome. Let's get some water and we'll get lots of rounds in. 3, 2, 1.